This is Michael Six Questions Lentz, and I'm a patron on Patreon of Addressing Gettysburg, quite simply because I like to ask questions. One of the neat features of being a patron on Patreon, one of the levels that you can access, is being able to ask questions or send in questions to Ask a Guide episodes. For me, it satisfies an intellectual curiosity that I have, and it really does help me in my understanding of the battle. So if you, too, want to harass Matt in a similar way that I do, then please consider becoming a patron on Patreon of Addressing Gettysburg.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, patrons, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today, this is something that I'm sorry for people who are not at the first lieutenant level, because as an audio only, this might not really translate very well for you. But if you are a first lieutenant, this is exactly why you are a first lieutenant, so that you can see how things go. And today we're going to you've all seen colorized photos, old photos colorized, and you might say to yourself, how do they do that? Is there color information there that they somehow magically extract with a chemical or something? Or do they go in by hand and color everything in? Like, how do they colorize black and white photographs? How can you add what is not there? Well, there's a way to do it, and it's arduous, according to my willingness to sit and work at something. I don't have time consuming is definitely a good word for it. Dr. James Beeghley is on. I'm always Beeghley.
There's a hard G in there.
Oh, Beeghley.
Yes.
So like Beeghley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Beeghley.
Yeah,
Beeghley.
Great Babe. Remember the cartoon? Beeghley.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great Babe, yeah. So Dr. James is with us.
That's an old reference.
I know. That's old Hanna-Barbera, right? Yeah. You're with us today. You're from teachthecivil.com, teaching the Civil War, and you do it through multimedia ways, right? I mean, how digital media? I mean,
what's that specifically? You mean like teaching the Civil War?
Well, I mean, yeah. Like, what exactly is? So what's your bag, baby?
My bag is getting people to learn about history and the Civil War in different ways. So yes, I can look at a primary resource or a primary source in a book. But I can also go to the Library of Congress and get that primary source and interact with it in a multitude of ways through colorizing it, through just zooming in and out of images, through just analysis of it. The other big story that I always like to say is, if I hand you a book and there's a picture of the Rose Farm dead, someone's already written a narrative under that, whether it be correct or not. I've got books that have it listed as dead in the first day of the battle.
Right.
So, and that was done by a guy at the Naval Academy, listed at the first in Wisconsin or whatever unit was. And, somebody's already written that narrative, but I can also throw that picture up and let you write the narrative and let you scaffold the information that you've learned. So that's how I learned to use technology. So from Google Earth and how can you do that, to video, to colorizing images, just a multitude of ways that you can interact, and taking the Gettysburg Address and putting it into a word cloud and see which images come up, which words come up higher, or and why were those words important in that speech at that time. Or take that, now I just did one not too long ago. Take that speech and use Chat GPT to write it as another author. So
oh, interesting.
Yeah. So write the Gettysburg Address as if you're J.K. Rowling.
How would you write it as a millennial?
Right. The millennial, right. That's
or
a tweet.
Gen Z or whatever.
How many tweets would it take to do the Gettysburg Address?
Right.
Yeah. Just little things like that. Or, you can use generative AI or, image AI to just, again, take a picture. I want to create an image of Abraham Lincoln giving the Gettysburg Address, or taking a selfie before the Gettysburg Address. So how can kids take original primary and even secondary sources like images from Kunstler or Gallon or one of those guys, and take that information and learn from it in a digital format and have access to it? Because even the Adams County Historical Society and all these historical societies and then museums have these resources online that you can access now that previously were inaccessible to people.
Right.
So how do you take that and use it in your classroom or use it as yourself to learn more about a topic.
It's amazing to me the things that people are able to do with AI visually already. You know, I'm seeing a lot more of this now, especially with history channels on YouTube. They'll use AI to create an image of an ancient person who we have no photograph of.
Oh, right.
Maybe there's paintings or maybe there's a statue or some kind of a likeness, but not really anything concrete that we can say for certain that is what, you know, Julius Caesar looked like or whatever.
Right. Or there was one that went around not too long ago. Somebody took the presidents and put them in modern attire.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that one? That one was really good.
Yeah. There's a lot of, and what's amazing to me is when I've tried AI visuals, Photoshop just had an update and they have an AI thing in there now, and they have a tutorial, and I did the tutorial. And as long as I did the tutorial, everything I told it to do, it did, and it looked realistic. And I was like, this is amazing. Then I tried to take what I learned in the tutorial on an image that I took,
and it didn't work.
And it's demented.
Right.
And maybe it's I don't know how to use the right language to get it to do whatever I need it to do. I don't know how to tweak it after it's created something. Like I had an image that I took of the Sherfy barn. And the fence is in the foreground. The fence kind of leads you into the picture towards the barn, which is in the center of the frame. And I said, Union soldiers leaning on fence, firing muskets.
Yeah, I won't get that. Not even close.
I mean, what it thought a Union soldier looked like. It was scary. It was creepy to me. It was like
creepy,
almost demonic looking.
Right.
So, you know, I'm amazed at people who have already mastered AI.
I think some of it is the program too. I use
not for me.
Well, you know, like Mid Journey is like one of the best ones, but it's a paid service. So the ones that
you have to pay. Yeah, that's the problem.
So that's the problem. You know, I use like Dolly is the Chat GPT version.
Okay,
it's not perfect, but it's
what do you have to pay for these things?
Well, the Chat GPT Dolly DALLE-E is free, and it does some for you. Adobe Firefly has one.
Okay,
that does some free stuff. That's a good one.
Firefly. So I have Adobe Creative Cloud. So
you don't need it. It's free. The Firefly is free as part of Creative Cloud. Not exterior, and it's not part of.
You don't have to have Creative Cloud
to have the Firefly, right?
All right. Well, then maybe I will do. Let me just adjust your.
I keep wanting to look up there. You know, or even you ask about what I do, and like taking. You can put a green screen. You can go to Walmart, and buy a green screen and put it behind a kid or behind you, and you can be anywhere in the world.
Right.
Doing news broadcast. We just learned about the Battle of Gettysburg. I want you to do a live from the field report of the Battle of Gettysburg. It's just, can you have kids write a written 3-page report? Yes. Or can you have them create something digitally to express what they've learned, because not all kids are writers. Some kids are creative and like to use video or whatever, and they can do it all on their phones now, some of them. So,
yeah. All right. Now you've got in the other room, in the control room, we have you set up with, now you use a program called Gimp, which is Gimp, like a free version of Photoshop.
It is Photoshop for free. And the reason why I did that, and I think you asked me before, is because I always work with teachers, and most of the teachers that I worked with couldn't afford Photoshop. So I've always found a free version, like DaVinci Resolve or OpenOffice. There are free versions of software out there that you can use that'll do what you want. So I've used Gimp forever, and it's just been, available, and it's easy to use and easy to learn. Whereas Photoshop has a little bit steeper learning curve. So I use Gimp, GIMP.
And so anybody can get that. And it has all the power of Photoshop. I was actually surprised. Like, it's got everything that Photoshop has.
Yeah, pretty much.
Seems, right?
Yeah, especially, unless you're an advanced graphic, editor, there's some features that it doesn't have. But you can also get, they call them plugins for GIMP that will allow it to expand the functionality of it.
Okay.
So, but for the most part, you can just go download the file, and it's pretty simple right out of the box.
Well, so what we're going to do is have you go over into the other room, and you're going to actually be controlling the visual part of the show from this part out, and people are going to be able to see just how you do it. Now, what's the photo that we're going to do? It's that famous photo of the disemboweled soldier.
Yeah, I can show you that one. I brought a couple different versions, so I think it's.
But you're going to show us layer by layer how you colorize
a photo.
That's the photo that you're going to do, right?
I can do that one. I can do that one. I can do I brought the gatehouse. I brought the three.
I think the disemboweled one. Not to be graphic, ladies and gentlemen, but I think because we've all seen this picture. And it's kind of in the black and white version, and when you see like copies of it, and they're not like the high res versions, it's kind of hard to make out what's going on.
Right.
But now you're starting with a high res version.
Yeah, I'll show you how to grab those.
Right, and then you're adding many layers to it. It's not just one button that you click. It's many different layers that you add.
Right. So if I have the color, if you have a line of soldiers, let's just say, Union soldiers, each of their coats, their sack coats or frock coats would have a different hue of navy blue.
Right.
So, you have to look at each one individually and what would their color of their coat be. And is it more worn? Is it an officer? So the officers' coats tend to be a little darker than the enlisted men. So looking at those types of things, like can generative AI colorize a photo? Yes, absolutely. But this is like, I call them like adult coloring books.
Yeah.
So just spending time coloring images, you know what I mean, to do it kind of relaxes. As you say, it would frustrate you.
It would. I would rather actually take a colored pencil and color in a coloring book or paint a picture. But
right.
yeah.
So those are the kinds of subtleties that you can get into and looking at it. The other cool thing is that sometimes when I post them online, I'll get historians or I'll get experts that'll say, no, this should be this. Mm-hmm. So I'll get some feedback and they'll say, you need to change, you should change it. Not you need to, you should. Yeah. I posted one of some dead soldiers. I think it was probably the Rosewoods, and they're like, no, they would have been dead X number of days. Their bodies would have been darker, because of the decomposition and, whatever I'm blanking
settling of blood and
that rigor mortis and all that. They said it would have been, the blood would have been darker. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Thank you for this guy's, an EMT kind of thing. And, so I can appreciate that feedback.
But to me, when I see a very well done colorization of a historic photograph, all of a sudden, that history, that event, those people are real to me. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is just because my brain is simple and it's not a very complex brain. But, I've always looked at history as almost like as if it didn't happen, like a fairy tale, you know. They're good stories. These people are interesting. They have interesting stories to their lives. And we look at their pictures, but they're not real to me because none of them smile. We don't see them in ways that we are used to seeing people now. And, they're posed. They're sitting there. They look like a statue.
Right.
And while I know that they were real, I know that they existed, it's not until I see them as my eyes see life, color, that I finally go, wow, that really was a real person. And look, his hair is more auburn than it is brown.
Or it looks different in auburn or whatever. Or you're doing
like Joe Hooker's a good example with the blue eyes and the red hair. When you see him colorized, it's like, wow,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So or you're doing one and you see an officer and you realize he has a wedding ring on. So you start thinking about his wife and his family that he might have back home, and little things like that start to get you to think about it. Or you go across one and they'll have a tear in their pants or something. How did that happen? You start to think about those types of things.
Yeah, more noticeable in color.
And yes, they are.
All right, so let's have you walk in the other room here. I got a little walking music for you here. And as he goes over and gets the computer ready, ladies and gentlemen, and if you're watching this on YouTube, this is part of our fall preview season. Go over to patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg and become a first lieutenant to see this stuff all the time, because once we go on Christmas break.
Listen to the rest of this interview and dozens like it. Support the show and get early access to special episodes, early and discounted ticket sales, and more. The second lieutenant level and above gets access to all monthly Patreon episodes. So please go to patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg, choose a tier, and join. And I thank you in advance.